Too late. I've already summoned Meteor.
Okay, let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the L2R2 PlayStation Podcast. My name's Fonzie. I'm joined by my co-host, Indie Game Dev, and my UK bruv for another mom, Callum Monroe. Callum, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Yeah, had a lot of time to play some games, so a lot to talk about.
Nice. Yeah, I've been. That's one benefit of this whole thing is that we have time to do stuff now.
Yeah.
One of them is play games.
Yes. Yeah.
Sweet. So, what have you been playing?
A lot actually. I think so. Over the past couple of weeks, I sort of used this time to go through my backlog. I me and my dad organised sort of one of sort of the loft or the attic, and found like a box of all my PS4 games, and I realised I had Infamous Second Son in there, which I never actually finished. So, and I thought with Ghost of Tsushima coming soon, that I'd give that a go. So I sort of completed that and platinumed it, and it was fine. It was, a typical early gen game, and I played and platinumed Twin Breaker as well, the new Sacred Symbols game, which was So I finished both Infamous and Twin Breaker, got the platinum on both of them, enjoyed them both. I think Twin Breaker was fun. I've never really played a game like that, like an old school brick breaking game with twin sticks, quite like that. It was very difficult, a lot to get your head around in some areas, but no, it was a really good fun game, a nice break from the norm. And then more recently, I played a little bit of Warzone, the Call of Duty Battle Royale, which I don't really dabble in sort of Battle Royales or really multiplayer anymore, but I really enjoy it. I think it's good fun. I haven't played it too much, but when I have, I've sort of had a good time with it. But over the past few days, I actually have gone back to Sakura.
Oh.
Which was I don't know if it was a good choice or not yet. I love the game, but it might be why I've had a headache for the past few days. But no, I've been enjoying that, and yesterday I started the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 remaster, which I've nearly finished on veteran difficulty, and that's given me some stress as well. But no, I'm really enjoying both Sakura and Modern Warfare 2. They're both the games I'm sort of working through at the moment and loving them both. And yeah, they're both really, really challenging.
Man, so let's pick those apart. So with the Infamous,
Sure.
What were you kind of came away with a sort of like meh feeling, like it's fine. Any other takeaways? Like, was there anything that impressed you, or were you having fun, or was it just kind of like it was its own little experience and it's forgettable?
Yeah, I think it looked good. I think because it was quite an early PS4 game, I think there was a lot of emphasis on, especially like its particles. So because it's to do with, you have like your smoke power, your neon power and all that. I think that all looked really good. It did run quite badly at times because of that, but not enough to really hinder it that much. But yeah, I just think the story was pretty basic, not really anything special to take away from that, and it's really short. I think when I played it the second time through for the platinum on the harder difficulty, I think it took me about 5 hours to beat, but it definitely scratched an itch, which was, that collectathon, running around, clearing all the areas, doing all the sort of free roam things. It was, and because it is quite short, it's quite nice and controlled. Like it wasn't too overwhelming. It was quite a nice little experience. So yeah, I really liked it, and I haven't played Infamous 1 or 2, and I've heard that they're like far better games than Second Son, but I did enjoy Second Son. I thought it was fun, and I think I've got the DLC that came out for it hanging around somewhere in my library.
Because he plays a different character.
Yeah. So I might give that a go as well. But yeah, I thought it was fine. I enjoyed it, but yeah, it didn't blow me away or anything.
Yeah, I share the same sentiment where it's I had fun with it, but I have no desire to like go back to it. I did at the time. I was definitely impressed with the visuals. Like the particle effects are cool. Every different ability you have, it just looks awesome, and I feel like I enjoyed the speed and the way you could move. There were sometimes it was kind of janky where you would run into something and stop, but I did have fun with it. But yeah, I am excited to see, because it's such a different contrast with that game and like in Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see how they play with that, but I like how they build their mechanics at the same time.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I did play the DLC and it was pretty cool too. It's just more of the same. I forget the powers of the girl that you play with, but that was cool. And I never played the other ones as well. Like I was in the same boat where this was the first Infamous game that I jumped into.
Yeah.
But I dug it.
Yeah. I think that sort of helps as well, because the overwhelming majority of people who I've seen talk about this is that it is a massive step down in sort of overall quality than the first two.
Right.
So in a way, it's made me want to play the first two a bit more. It's made me, I don't know, because it is an early PS4 game, you can sort of forgive the fact that maybe the story took a bit of a backseat because they wanted to, play with this new hardware, which they obviously did.
Right.
So I'm hoping Ghost of Tsushima is a bit more developed in that way, and obviously their earlier titles are examples of what they can do. So, but yeah, it's made me sort of, I don't know if it's made me feel a bit different about my anticipation of Ghost of Tsushima or not. But yeah, it was definitely interesting to play their like most recent game.
Yeah, what about Twin Breaker? So that's that new game. It's Colin Moriarty, and then I forget his co-host on his podcast on Sacred Symbols.
Chris Reagan.
Yeah, Chris Reagan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's them. They didn't make it, right? They worked with, I forget it's like Lily Games.
Yeah, Lily Mo Games developed it, and Colin wrote the story for it. So it's got like a really in-depth storyline, which is quite funny. You can definitely tell it was written by Colin.
Right, like the beginning, there's a lot of a story before you actually start playing. Because I got to play over the weekend too. Yeah, I was pretty surprised.
Yeah, I thought it was like a nice little addition. It was just, you didn't really take much notice of it, or I didn't take too much notice of it as I got sort of further in. But yeah, I think the game itself is really good. I think it's quite content rich in terms of the other modes and things you have.
Yeah.
For people who enjoy getting trophies, the trophy list is brilliant. I think it's really well paced. You end up getting them sort of consistently, and then once you finish the game, there's the ones that are left are really fun to carry on playing the game for. I thought it was great, but yeah, it did. There was a couple times where I had to walk away because it was really frustrating me.
How did you handle the maneuvering? Because you actually controlled two of those little platforms to bounce the balls off to the bricks.
Yeah.
You control them independently with each thumbstick. So how did you mentally handle moving those around?
Yeah, so I didn't mind it too much. So again, this is the first time I've played like a twin stick brick breaker, and the first time I sort of, the first few levels, even when it sort of goes up to like the more Pong orientated screen, I didn't mind that, but it was when there's 4 to control, like where you have to have the bottom ones and the top ones. It was just like, it was like, because I'd know where I'd need to move, but my brain just wouldn't compute, and it just wouldn't sort of send the right signals, and
you don't have much time because you're on the clock because you're waiting for stuff to, and then you have a ball bouncing somewhere else. It's like it was but yeah, I really liked it. I thought the music was awesome. I thought the music was a real standout thing about it, and yeah, I think it from a gameplay perspective, I think it was done, I don't think they could have really done a better job of what they were going for, really. So I really enjoyed it, and I might sort of after a few months dust off the Vita and download it on there, because it's cross-buy. Which you don't see too often anymore. It sort of gives me a reason to charge up the Vita again. You don't see much effort on any front for Vita games. Well, I mean, I do see every once in a while there's that company in limited run. They'll try and re-release like indie games on Vita, but I know they're running it into a certain issue where they just don't have enough cartridges anymore, because they Sony only made a certain amount, so it's like they're kind of running out of the option to do physical releases anymore. But I mean, I'm worried eventually that they'll just kind of close down that storefront on Sony's end. I don't know how long they predict to keep it up, but I'm hoping they do, because there is a fan base. There's a hungry fan base for Vita stuff, and why not use it?
Well, it's the only people who really seemed to not believe in it were Sony. I mean, everyone who had a Vita loved it. So it was definitely a missed opportunity. But I think it's actually East Asia Soft, the guys who published Twin Breaker. I think they're like a big company who still publish games for the Vita. So I think that they're one of the only companies that still, support it, which is a shame. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That sucks. Well, so you're playing Twin Breaker, and then you switched over to, is it Sekiro, Shadows Die
Yeah.
Twice? So I've never played that. It looks brutally hard, which already turns me off. But
Yeah.
so how are you digging that gameplay?
Yeah, so I'm not a huge fan of Dark Souls. I haven't played 2 and 3. I only played the first one, and I just found it really janky. I felt it was hard, but there wasn't really much you could do about it.
Yeah.
The only way you could get past the difficulty was to, understand how janky the dodge was and just try and cheese your way into it. And it just wasn't satisfying. I didn't find. I mean, killing a boss was satisfying, but the process of learning how to beat the bosses, I just didn't find enjoyable.
Gotcha.
And I played Bloodborne. I enjoyed that, but again, wasn't too keen on it. But Sekiro is completely different because it is extremely hard, but it's so satisfying and learnable. It's very much every enemy you fight, it's all about sort of being patient and waiting and sort of timing your deflections and your counters, and it's just, I think it's a lot more manageable as well because you have one weapon throughout the whole game. You get some other things, you get these prosthetic tools which can help you. They're kind of like secondary attacks and things.
Gotcha.
But the fact that you sort of have one weapon, it's the combat is all about deflecting and being patient. It's just a lot more manageable, and it's although it's really difficult to master, you understand what you need to do to master it, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
But the problem I had was I played it last April, I think it came out, and that was the last time I'd really played it, and I'd got past a few bosses and got stuck at one and then stopped playing it. And I had this sort of conundrum. I was like, I'm going to have to restart it because I can't remember how to play it. I don't even know what I was doing. And I don't really want to have to fight the bosses I've already beaten. So I started it and just tried to beat this boss that I was already stuck at, and I just stuck with it and managed to beat him. And then luckily there was a boss not long afterwards, which is quite a famously hard boss in the game, and it took me hours to beat him. But that boss in particular really teaches you, it's a real it really teaches you the best way to fight bosses and the best way to deflect in it. It was the perfect boss to go to because after that I'm able to now run around and I really understand the countering, and so I'm really enjoying it. I've just beaten a boss called the Guardian Ape. I don't know if you've seen anything about this boss. He's quite...
No.
It's some big monkey with a sword in its neck.
Oh god.
Nice. Once you beat it, you sort of, to do the finishing blow, you take the sword and you rip his head off.
Nice.
And then it plays the sort of animation to say the boss is killed. And then as you're walking away, this monkey gets up, picks up its head and its sword, and it's got another phase. So that was pretty that was pretty horrifying.
That is dope. That alone makes me want to play.
Yeah, it's, and this is coming from someone who's not a huge fan of the Souls games. Sekiro is just awesome, and I love Japanese culture and everything. So they really take the setting seriously.
Gotcha.
Because From are a Japanese company as well, and you can really see that they really understand where it's set. Obviously, it's very mythical and all of that, but it's very and by default, all the voice acting's in Japanese, which just adds to the sort of setting. But I can't recommend it enough. It's so much fun. It's so satisfying when you start to learn how it all works as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, and I've never been a huge fan of the Souls games either. Well, I've never jumped into them, so I actually don't know how it would feel with the combat.
Yeah.
But just on paper, it looks like it's just too difficult. Where I'm not going to be. I just don't want to punish myself. But the fact that this seems like a different take, or at least a more approachable thing that you can master, is that seems more interesting to me. Although it seems like it's still brutally hard, like you're describing it. And then I love feudal Japan and that kind of mythical stuff going on. I totally dig that. So I gotta. And I remember seeing footage. It looked beautiful too, but I just kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well. I think because Dark Souls are in their own, and Bloodborne are in their own sort of world, and it's you sort of don't really feel comfortable straight away because it's this really strange world, really obscure areas and environments, whereas Sekiro's in this really nice, well, not nice, but this setting that you've seen before, and it's very picturesque.
Yeah.
And It's just really nice to play, and like I said, it's a lot more learnable, and I think that is down to the fact that your primary weapon is the same weapon throughout the game, whereas in Dark Souls there's lots of different weapons and fighting styles and all of this, so it's kind of harder for the devs to maybe masterfully like make it as learnable as Sekiro is, whereas Sekiro it's one style of fighting, so they've really been able to like over design it.
Gotcha. Nice. And then I did also play some of that Call of Duty 2 or Modern Warfare 2 remaster.
Yeah.
I've been digging it. So the campaign still holds up. I feel like the visuals, I can't tell if they're using the Modern Warfare engine or they're just using that same engine that they remastered the first Modern Warfare a couple years ago. I feel like it's somewhere in between, but most likely that first engine that they used.
Yeah.
But it looks beautiful. It's dope. It's super weird playing that no Russian camp or level again, because it's still so just eerie and dark and fucked up. But like that's the point of that level. Yeah. I think because when I played Modern Warfare 2, I don't know how old I'd be. I don't know what year it came out. Was it 2008 or something? Yeah, 2008, 2009.
Yeah, so I'd have been like 13, 14. So I think at the time I didn't really like appreciate how heavy it was. Yeah. And playing it again, it is very tough that level. And it is. I mean, I enjoyed the level, and I think it, like you said, there's a point to why it's there, and it sets up the story really well as well. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. As for the engine, I was wondering as well. In fact, at first I wasn't sure if it was just the Modern Warfare 2 graphics, just upscaled. But then I looked on YouTube at what Modern Warfare 2 used to look like, and it's definitely completely redone. That game does not look as good as I remember it.
No, it's rough. And then like there's bits I've seen side by side. I want to say IGN does it too, where there's that one of the first early missions. You're on a Humvee that has like a motorized chain gun, and in the original you're blasting people away fine, but in the remake remaster rather, they add the ability to just like destroy some of the palm trees. Like there's physics on them, so your chain gun actually cuts through them. Little stuff like that. Yeah. The buildings actually will fall rather than like crack and kind of tilt. There's a lot of stuff that they kind of reworked under the hood. So it's pretty in depth.
Yeah. I think it is pretty much identical to the COD 4 remaster, and it was the pause screen, weirdly enough, that made me sort of realise that, and the pause scene and like the HUD is exactly identical to the COD 4 one. And I think that it's a good thing they chose that, and not because as much as I like the new Modern Warfare, I think it feels completely different to those Call of Duties. Sure. I think it feels a lot more like Rainbow Six Siege, like a lot more sway and heavy. Whereas I think when you want to play the old Modern Warfares, you want it to be that fast-paced, twitchy, arcadey sort of feel. But yeah, I'm loving it. I'm really, really enjoying it, and it's a really nice palate cleanser, sort of during this time. And yeah, like I said earlier, I've started it on Veteran, and that favela mission where they're all on the rooftops.
I just finished that one. Yeah, it's pretty dope.
Yeah, that was carnage. Yeah. I was getting to the point where I was like, I don't even think I'm going to be able to do this. But,
well, I was playing on just regular baby mode, and you're on Veteran or whatever. So yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was. I don't recommend. Well, I do recommend doing it because it's fun, but I don't recommend doing that level. Maybe skip that level.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really good, and again, because I was quite young when I first played it, I don't think I quite. It was more Modern Warfare 3 where, all these plot points were sort of ending and tying together that I remember a bit more fondly, but it's more difficult to remember Modern Warfare 2 sort of story, so it's nice to see that all again.
Yep, I hear you on that. You know what? I also got to play for the past 2 weeks or so, or a week anyways, was the Doom Eternal that just came out.
Oh, yeah, I meant to ask you about that. Yeah.
I tell you, man, you're totally wrong. I don't know what game you played. Maybe it was something the controller wasn't plugged in. I don't know what they gave you over at Gamescom. But it's so dope, man. I love this game. I love it.
Nice. I'm glad you enjoy it. Cause I was interested to see because you were so excited about it. I was glad to hear that you enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. So for sure, I think it delivered on everything that I would have wanted in a sequel. I definitely think once it's on sale enough for you, I do want you to jump in and try it because you're a fan of shooters. This is that same kind of. let that truck pass by. Whatever they, whatever they're doing.
He shouldn't be out.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? Give him a ticket. The features that they've added, the mechanics, the way you're moving around, and you have to. What I love is how you have to balance the weapons you use. So you can't just use one tool for the job. There's so many that you have to specifically whip out for whatever enemy or encounter. And it's just the traversal is actually fun. I dug that. Something about the gameplay. It's still fast, but you really have to think. It's like a fast-paced chess that you have to like think ahead.
Yeah, I think the problem I had with it was I haven't played Doom 2016, so I didn't know what to expect when I played Eternal, and from what I had heard about Doom 2016 and what I assumed was that it's just sort of like a fun romp where you just kill demons. I always knew that Doomslayer's meant to be this like really overpowered, like insane guy who just kills demons for fun. So when I played Eternal, and it was obviously more of a welcome change for people who had already played 2016 Doom, but when I was introduced to like you've got really scarce ammo, to get ammo you need to kill enemies in a certain way, and your health, you die really easily, so to get health you have to kill enemies a certain way, and it was all these things to think about, and it was like you said, it was like chess, like it's very tactical. But still fast paced, and I think it was just a confliction on what I was expecting.
Gotcha.
And it just sort of it just made me, because I was expecting to feel one thing and I felt something else. It was sort of that kind of thing. So I think maybe if I played, I for a while I've been thinking of playing 2016 Doom, because I'm sure you can probably get it for pennies now.
Oh yeah.
But, I think if I played that one first, really got into it and understood how that works, and then played Eternal afterwards, I'd probably enjoy it. Because I've heard great things about it, and I've heard it's very difficult. Which is I think the thing that I didn't expect when I played it at Gamescom, and that's what frustrated me. I'm glad that you like it, and that it's delivered on everyone's expectations as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think with the difficulty, and that's also might be where it's right up your alley, is that it's you kind of have to learn how to play, how they want you to play it. You still have freedom to choose like how you tackle the arenas, but you have to learn the rules within it. And then once you do, it's they just let you loose, and then they just kind of keep ramping up the difficulty. So the fact that you dig games like Sekiro and playing Call of Duty on Veteran, I think that it's right up your alley, because they just keep ramping it up, and that's without adjusting the actual difficulty. You can still increase the level of difficulty. That's just in the main game, so you have all these options to kind of structure it for how brutal you want it to be.
Sure. Yeah. I think as well, because I only played like a demo, so it was like a contained like portion of the game. Yeah. So it gave you like a really short tutorial, and then just like pushed you into like this huge like bit with lots and lots of enemies. Yeah. So I imagine the actual game is probably paced a bit better, and you get some time to adjust yourself to the new sort of way of fighting. So I imagine it was probably just a mixture of my assumptions going into it and the demo itself that sort of put me off of it. But no, yeah, like I said, I'm glad that it delivered for you, and because you were very excited about it, and I think you had told me off a couple of times for saying I wasn't.
Well, I was hoping you were wrong. That was me just like not being willing to accept reality, but yeah.
Oh, I'm always wrong. So don't worry.
Callum, well, we had some stuff go down, some news, not a whole lot, but some stuff we can kind of break down. One of them is, so we'll talk about some Final Fantasy stuff, but also some Resident Evil reviews came out for Resident Evil 3, which comes out Friday. And we got some just minuscule PlayStation stuff, some Call of Duty news, but we'll get into it. So we have the first one up is the Final Fantasy 7 Remake news. So this is of Mike Fahey from Kotaku. So people are already playing Final Fantasy 7 Remake in Australia. So he has the breakdown here. When Square Enix announced physical copies of Final Fantasy VII Remake would ship to Europe and Australia earlier than its April 10th release date due to COVID-19 pandemic, we didn't think they meant this early. The eagerly anticipated game is already in the hands of many Australians, as evidenced by a growing number of Twitch streams and YouTube videos. Quote, love living in Oz right now, end quote, reads the title of one of the numerous Final Fantasy Remake live streams on Twitch this morning. 9 days earlier than the official release date, what was supposed to be a global release on April 10th has turned into a strange, staggered release due to complications brought on by the COVID-19 crisis. Another little tidbit, that came out in the news yesterday was this new Final Fantasy 7 remake is going to be 100 gigabyte file size, which is going to be it's pretty tough. So that's just part one. Is going to be 100 gigabytes.
Yeah.
Where do you land on the Final Fantasy 7 remake? Are you still pretty stoked? Like, do you think you'll get this day one? Where do you land on it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited for it. I love the demo, and yeah, I think it's going to be sort of one of the top games of the year. So yeah, I'm really really excited for it. This is sort of really caused a storm in sort of the Final Fantasy communities that I sort of like follow on Twitter and Facebook and things, because Square Enix came out at first saying that people might not receive their game on time, so it might be later due to different companies shipping at different times. So a lot of people were then cancelling their pre-orders and sort of saying they were going to purchase it digitally or keeping their pre-orders, because some people have paid over $300 for these special editions.
Gotcha.
So some people were just opting to buy the digital one as well and dropping another $60 on the game, and then their physical copies are actually coming earlier. So you've got those people who are kind of annoyed that their games come earlier in a way, and then you've got the people who are just purely jealous that these people have got the game early.
Right.
And that apparently people are starting to spoil the game, which I don't really understand how you can spoil the story for 7. I understand that they've added in some new elements and new twists and things, but yeah, I mean, and also you can just stay off social media, I mean, if it's that important. But yeah, this has really caused a bit of a storm.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, and it's also something you can't control with the whole COVID thing, messing up shipments and all that. But it is a bummer to be waiting for your copy and seeing other people playing it. I know I read some frustration on Twitter from other outlets not being able to, because this game is still under embargo, the review, so they can't talk about this game yet. People are playing it. It's it's basically in people's hands at this point, but they still can't talk about the reviews. But they did go to explain why that 100 gigabyte file size was necessary for the remake. So this is of Matt Kim of IGN. Final Fantasy VII Remake will take up over 100 gigabytes on your hard drive. One of the reasons why the RPG clocks in so much storage space, even as part one of the multi-part release, is because Square Enix created custom assets for every part of Midgar. In an interview with US Gamer, Final Fantasy VII Remake co-director Naoki Hamaguchi said that rather than thinking about repurposing standard assets for individual locations like the slums or the Shinra building, we decided to build each location using unique assets to achieve the quality desired for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I guess it does show off this way because I'm playing that demo. All of the textures, all of the in-game stuff is incredibly beautiful, so maybe it's worth it for them to really try and push this to 100 gigabytes. I mean, you're getting your money's worth for a remake, but it's just kind of ridiculous at face value to see part 1 being 100 gigabytes.
Yeah, I think because although it is part 1, I think they've said before as well that this game is going to be just the first part is going to be as big, if not bigger, than any of their other Final Fantasy mainline games. I think it's more in the vein of, I know you're not a huge fan of Final Fantasy, but for example, you got Final Fantasy X, which had Final Fantasy X Part 2. You had Final Fantasy 13, which actually ended up being a trilogy, so it went to 13.2 and 13.3. So I think it's more in that vein. So each part will be a full Final Fantasy game, a fully fledged game.
Gotcha.
Just they'll have sequels within that world, because each numbered Final Fantasy game is in its own world. It's not related to any other Final Fantasies, apart from some shared enemies and sort of little nuances like that. So I think they're just planning on making it into a saga, sort of, because they obviously have so much ambition for the story and fleshing it out and adding so much to these characters, which again is another thing that people are very divided on. I think it's a really good thing. I think that the difference between JRPGs from the late 90s, early 2000s, the difference between JRPGs now is huge, and I think the only way for this, because it's not just a game, it's the world and the characters and the story that people love. If you play the game now, it's horrible. But it's the world and the characters and the music and everything that encapsulates you in. So I think it deserves to be fleshed out and to have this much effort, having unique assets created, all of this, it deserves that. And the only way to get sort of what it deserves is to stagger the release, and flesh it out so that it can really be this epic that it deserves to be. But yeah, I think I can't say I've heard. I'm sure it's happened in other games, but yeah, that sounds pretty unique and amazing. But you do wonder whether that means if it's going to be limited in the amount of locations there's going to be, because there is surely a line where that only so much can be done in a certain amount of time. But at least it shows that they care about the quality, and that they're putting everything into it.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. I mean, especially with a game like Final Fantasy VII that is so near and dear to many gamers' hearts. It's like it's always in the top 10, top 50 games of the generation, or of our generation. It's always on that list. So to treat a remaster rather, you have to do it with the care necessary, and that means fully fleshing out each level and
Exactly,
respecting it. So I mean, you can't lose if you do that.
No, and I mean, just from the trailers, I've seen that there's new villains, so there's completely new characters in it. There's I don't know if you've seen for the trailer, there's like another soldier who's like the same thing Cloud is, and he's not in the original, but it seems like he could be perhaps the villain of the first part, which and again, people like to look at this from the perspective of that they're doing this just to make money, but then on the other hand, they'll also talk about how amazing this world is and how deep this world is and how rich with lore it is.
Yeah.
Yet, if you play the original game, that lore is in text boxes and, like tiny little things that you have to read. Whereas now they have the ability to really expand on this world that everybody loves, really flesh out these characters, because they're not just going to be text boxes and little polygons anymore.
Right.
They're going to have emotions and so there's so much more they can explore. And if they were, and people say things like, "Oh, I'm just going to wait for the whole thing to be out." And
Good
it's
luck,
like,
man.
Yeah, and if Square took the time to, still be as ambitious as they're being, but make the entire game, then not only would it take years and years, but how are they going to financially sustain like a 10, 15 year development cycle? They have to release it in parts.
Right.
So they can make money to carry on making the rest of the game. It's not free to make these games, especially not if they're building unique assets for everything. So
right.
I think I find that quite frustrating, especially considering I'm not even the biggest Final Fantasy VII fan, but I'm still like chuffed that they're choosing to flesh this out, because I know that the world is like full of like really amazing lore and the characters are all really interesting and the story's great. And I just don't see why people can't see that.
No, you bring up some good points. I mean, that really is the only realistic way to keep this game afloat, is to release it in chunks, because it is so massive. You can't be working on this for a good 5, 6, 7, 10 years and then produce something. That production cost would be through the roof. So at least if you can kind of make back on that investment, because they still have stockholders, they have shareholders, they have people they have to answer to. So releasing that in chunk fully funds the game, and you get a more expanded experience. So it's like, how could you find anything wrong with that? But
yeah, and a big problem with the original Final Fantasy VII is, there's a character that dies in it. I mean, I'm sure you probably know. I mean, it's kind of like a Darth Vader is Luke's father kind of spoiler, but you can't level when you play the original and you know that they're going to die. You don't bother leveling them up or grinding them or getting their best weapons or anything. Whereas this remake is looking like the first part will end just before their death, or maybe even end at their death, which would then mean that this sort of soul experience, this sort of like separate experience, it means every single character you can fully invest in, you can fully level up and grind. And
gotcha. And
I think story-wise, because there is, like I said, that the story is, because of the time it came out, it's just text boxes. There's no voice acting. The cutscenes are very limited. Yet there's so much to say and to talk about, and there's such a big story to tell. And so I think that they need to flesh it out. They need to explore different avenues that maybe weren't explored in the first game, and explore things that weren't explored quite as much as they could have been. Yeah. And the Final Fantasy VII original, it's on PS4. You can play it. If you don't want to play the remake, the original's still there.
Right.
But
Yeah, it's I mean, I don't see how people are still. That's always the risk you have with anytime you remake or dig back into a property people love. You know, you're always gonna have people that get angry. I mean, but it doesn't erase the other one that we all love. So it's like that one still is there. So just play that one or watch that one.
Yeah.
Now there was something this morning, just kind of like a wonky, just weird glitch or something that's happening with Final Fantasy IX. So this article is from IGN. They have the details. The latest update for Final Fantasy IX on Steam has seemingly removed the entire game, making it unplayable. A handful of threads have been made on the Final Fantasy IX general discussion board on Steam, with all of them discussing the sudden disappearance of the game. The update, which went live at some point in the last 24 hours, has reduced the game's file size to 0 megabytes, effectively rendering it gone completely. So Square hasn't responded yet on this, but so it's just a glitch that just erases your game. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yep,
I love Final Fantasy IX.
Yeah, I've never played that one as well, but yeah.
Yeah, that's
it's a bummer.
That's great. Yeah, I think people are constantly like moaning about Final Fantasy games being really buggy on Steam as well. So people are going to go into meltdown over that.
Well, Callum, we'll keep the remake train going. So the next thing we have here is a Resident Evil 3 remake reviews. I have the Metacritic pulled up. It's coming out this Friday. The Metacritic so far right now is at an 80. It's got pretty positive reviews. There's some, they go dip below to the lower end and bring up some criticisms. I want to kind of pick apart some of these criticisms and we'll see what these outlets say. So I'll start with IGN here. Gave it a 9 out of 10. They have a quote here: with a sublimely detailed world and breakneck survival horror gameplay, Resident Evil 3 is just as good as its 2019 predecessor. More please. 85 from Easy Allies. Resident Evil 3 is a superb reimagining that complements last year's Resident Evil 2 by prioritizing frantic action without compromising its horror roots. We have Destructoid gives it an 80. The remake of Resident Evil 3 is going to be divisive, just as the original was. Now, you've brought this up before, that the reviews seem to be going toe-and-toe with that original release of Resident Evil 3. Mm-hmm. So we have Push Square gives it a 70. Resident Evil 3 had the potential to better its classic predecessor, but a disappointing amount of cut content and the letdown that Nemesis is hold back from greatness. The Verge gives it sort of a lower end review here. Almost everything it does right was part of Resident Evil 2 as well, and many of that game's qualities are no longer present. Overall, the package is a lot less appealing. It feels more like an expansion to 2 than an entirely new game. That doesn't mean it isn't worth playing, but it does mean you should know what you're getting into before pulling the trigger. So when you read some of this stuff, what's your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's about expected, really. I think Resident Evil 2 is quite a unique remake because it has the 4 playthroughs, which sort of mask the actual length of the game. Because these classic Resident Evil games they're not meant to be long. They're meant to be fleshed out by their puzzles and everything like that. But not just that, they're meant to be replayable. They've got all these different unlockables which you're able to see, which means that obviously it's kind of like a catalogue. You're like, oh, I want that. How do I get it? Oh, I have to complete the game in under 2 hours, or I have to complete the game without opening the item box, or things like that. And that's something that these old games, that their old hardcore fans enjoy about Resident Evil. So when you're going to remake these older games, that's obviously still going to be present in these remakes, and they are. And I think that because Resident Evil 3 doesn't have these 4 playthroughs, I think that a lot of people who perhaps aren't into the whole replaying the game to try and do it in a certain way or on harder difficulties or whatever, I think that's where it separates the different people who prefer different kinds of games. So I think The Verge put it pretty well, and saying it doesn't mean it's not worth playing, but it does mean you should know what you're getting into. And I think that's the most sensible way to put it. I think Resident Evil, these older Resident Evil titles that have been remade quite faithfully, they are about playing through it the first time and then playing through it again and basically learning the game like the back of your hand, and that's just part of the fun. And yeah, I think that these are all fair reviews. I think it sounds great. I think the positives are very positive, and the negatives are very specific to the kind of gamer you are. If you're not one of those people who wants to play through a game again and again to try and learn the game more, or push yourself to try and do these challenges, then that's fair enough. But yeah, I'm really excited. I'm a huge fan of the originals, so I think that I'll probably enjoy the fact it's short, and I'm a fan of shorter games anyway. With not a lot of time, it's much nicer to play more manageable games. These like 6 to 10 hour titles are perfect for me, and I don't think that value is the same as the length of the game. I'd much rather play a 5 to 6 hour brilliant game for the price of a full price game. I'd rather pay that than a full price for a 100-hour game that's not very good.
I guess I'm bummed that I wish you could pay separately for the Resistance aspect of it, because it's linked to this.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what ends up getting us that full price tag for this thing. So I guess I wouldn't be so bummed with the shorter campaign if I could just buy the Resident Evil 3 remake and not have to worry about the Resistance, just because I have no interest in playing that. So that does it's a slight annoyance, but and also I guess I'm somewhat turned off at the fact that you don't have that same replayability that you did in the Resident Evil 2 remake. That's what it seems like. But otherwise, I'm still super excited for it. It's just kind of just little bummers along the way, just little bumps. It's just kind of it's like, really.
And I think with the Resident Evil 2, because there are 4 playthroughs, you got the 2 scenarios and the 2 characters. The playthroughs themselves aren't very different, aside from maybe 2 locations.
Right.
So I think that's a good way to trick maybe newcomers to replaying the game, because even if you play Claire's playthrough and then play Leon's playthrough, you're going to remember, or maybe not on your second playthrough, maybe on the third or fourth, you're going to remember how to do all these puzzles, and you're going to remember how you did certain bits, and you're going to feel that satisfaction that comes when you begin to master a game or begin to get good at a game. And I think that was quite well disguised by the 4 playthroughs, because they are very similar. And I think that if again, I understand why people don't think that this may be a right game for them to get, especially for full price. But if people treated it the same as Resident Evil 2 in the way that they just started it again, tried to do it differently, tried to maybe do one of the challenges, I think that they'd enjoy it just as much. But yeah, I think people are more than entitled to choose what they spend their money on and to decide what is of value to them. And I think that if you don't personally see a 5 to 6 hour game as something you would, 1, play again, or 2, you don't think it's worth your money, then that's completely fair enough. And I think that the reviews reflect that really well. But yeah, me personally, huge Resident Evil fan. I can't wait for it. The only thing that because I've watched a few reviews. I watched Jim Sterling's review of it, because he's a big old school Resident Evil fan, so I like to watch his takes on them. I enjoyed his Resident Evil 2 review as well. But he loves it, and he said that his only gripe, he said that the gripe he hears is that Nemesis is now only comes up in scripted boss fights.
I've been hearing, they kind of teased Nemesis to be like, no matter what, he's coming out of the walls, he's always kind of chasing you, but I guess he's a bit more limited. Yeah, and
from a perspective of playing the game, I'm quite pleased about that, because that would terrify me if he chased you throughout the whole game. But a huge gripe that people had with the original was that Nemesis was really annoying because he wouldn't leave you alone.
Gotcha.
Because he is so powerful, and Jim Sterling even refers to him as, he said, he didn't want to say too much, but he said there are points where it feels like a Dark Souls game because Nemesis is just that unfair and that overpowered.
Gotcha.
And I think that that's why people didn't really like the original, because he was similarly overpowered then, but he would chase you so much in that game, where it would get annoying because you're just trying to do a puzzle or you're just trying to do something and Nemesis shows up. So I think again that's kind of a contradiction in a way from some people, because on the original they wished he wasn't there so much, and now with the remake they wish he was there all the time.
Right.
So I think that's maybe one of those decisions that Capcom made that maybe you didn't know you wanted, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So perhaps originally they had it that he chased you like in the original, but the play testing showed that it was super annoying and would sort of put people off or whatever. So I think that sounds to me like it was a decision made for our sake. rather than because we don't always know best. So
No, yeah, that's 100% true. I feel like you could then allocate that to like a difficulty setting. Like, hey, you've beat the game. Now try it with Nemesis on your back the entire time. Like, let the player choose, I guess, when they want to kind of do that thing.
Yeah. Well, I've seen actually there's an extra difficulty as well, because Resident Evil 2 went up to hardcore, and this one has an extra difficulty.
Okay.
Which is interesting. And I've seen as well that there's like challenges. So like, for example, it'll be like get 150 kills with the shotgun, and it will get you these points, and then you can spend these points on things that will upgrade your like overall health, upgrade like certain things. And they also buy the classic, like infinite weapons. So you can get the infinite rocket launcher, the infinite knife, or the infinite handgun,
Gotcha.
Whatever. So there's kind of this like arcadey challenge aspect to it as well, which I think adds, a different kind of replayability to it as well, for people who enjoy that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I'm still super stoked for it. I can't wait to play it. I'm looking at footage now. It's just such a beautiful engine, like man, they're really nailing it, and I'm hoping
it's so disgusting, but in a good way.
Right. No, they nail everything about it. So I mean, I trust them, and I can't wait to play it.
Yeah, I'll definitely be getting it tomorrow, and hopefully if I get the time, I'll finish it tomorrow as well, and then I can get cracking on the challenges, because the next Friday is when Final Fantasy VII's out, so I'm hoping to get to a point of Resident Evil 3 by then where I'm ready to move on to something else. So it's going to be a good couple of weeks.
Well, we've all got the time now, so now there's no excuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not the money, but we got the time.
Yeah.
Well, Callum, another remastered news that we can pick apart here. So this is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Remaster is official, and it's out now. So this was teased, not really teased, but leaked over the past couple of weeks here and there. And Activision finally actually announced this and rolled this out. Part of the issue with this, or the controversy, is this is a PS4 exclusive. And I guess the internet is freaking out because of this. So with the original articles from IGN, Matt Purslow breaks it down. So we have Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 campaign remastered is no longer just a badly kept secret. It's out now on PS4, and yes, no Russian is still in it. Modern Warfare 2 campaign remastered has an exclusivity period on PS4 and will launch on PC and Xbox One 30 days later on April 3rd, although you can pre-purchase now. The remaster has been handled by Beanox. As the title implies, this is a remaster of just the campaign, and there are no multiplayer modes included. So a little disclaimer here, with their exclusivity deal, just to kind of like have the facts down. So in 2010, Microsoft and Activision signed a multi-year agreement to bring Call of Duty game add-ons and map packs first to Xbox Live. That deal ended on September 2015, and since then, PlayStation has had timed exclusivity on all Call of Duty games and DLC since then. So they've had this exclusivity deal for a while. Xbox used to have it, and although the internet seems to be very angry that they're using that again now as they did before, and so they're going to have to let all the other players wait for another 30 days. Does this kind of thing bother you? Do you think it limits is it like anti-consumer, or is it just a bad idea, or is it just kind of business as usual?
I think the survival mode that was in the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare bit, that was time exclusive for a year. I think that was really an awful thing to do. But I think with this, considering it was literally announced the day before it came out, I don't really see it as too much of an issue. I mean, people who don't own PS4s, they've literally just heard that this is officially coming, and it's out in 30 days. So I don't really see it as too much of an issue personally. I think I can see why people do have an issue with it, because time exclusivity is a pain. But yeah, I think it's only 30 days, and before they knew it was out in 30 days, they didn't even know it was coming. So I don't think it's too much of an issue. I'm sure people will get over it quickly.
Yeah, the internet
within
moves
30
fast,
days.
So. Right. I know there was something I was going to bring up with that exclusivity. So, I just lost my train of thought, Callum. So I was going to say some kind of brilliant point I was going to bring up, and
it'll come back if it was important.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing I was going to bring up. So if you do pre-order it, if you're an Xbox or a PC player, if you pre-order it, you get the multiplayer unlockable things with this. So the Modern Warfare 2 campaign remaster doesn't have multiplayer in it, but you unlock these like characters and features from Call of Duty 2 that are cosmetic stuff that carry over to like the Modern Warfare campaign. So if you do pre-purchase it, you get some of that stuff that you can integrate into your multiplayer. So it's not like a lose-lose situation. You get a little bit of it if you are another player on a different console and you buy that. So it's not like end of the world, but you do get some cosmetic stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, on Xbox One and PC, you can play the original Modern Warfare 2 campaign anyway, backwards compatibility on both of those. The PS4 doesn't have that option. So yeah, I mean, you could, I mean, this is really clutching at straws and not really a serious comment, but you could even say, oh, why don't Xbox share their backwards compatibility technology with PlayStation or something like, but it's 30 days. If it was, Modern Warfare 2 campaign remastered's coming out on PlayStation 4, it will launch next year on PC and Xbox, I'd understand. But it's 30 days, it hadn't even been announced. So it's almost like it was announced that day and then it's like it's coming out next month. Like that's still a shock reveal.
Right.
So I think this particular thing isn't too much problem. Again, I can see why people are peeved about it, but I think normally time exclusivity is a bit annoying and a bit stupid and not very consumer friendly, but I think in this case it's not a big deal at all.
Yeah, I share the same views, but I just found it funny. People were really
yeah. People are not happy about anything, it seems.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't please everybody. So, Callum, our next thing here is just kind of confirmation on some Silent Hill rumors. We heard rumbling a little bit the past couple weeks. So this is Silent Hill. Konami shoots down recent rumors of a reboot. This is Matt Purslow of IGN. Konami has denied that it is working on a new Silent Hill game following numerous rumors suggesting the series would be returning. Talking to Rely on Horror, a Konami US PR spokesperson said, quote, "We are aware of all the rumors and reports, but can confirm that they are not true. I know it's not the answer your fans may want to hear," end quote. It's not to say, requote, it's not to say we are completely closing the door on the franchise, just not in the way it is being reported, they added. Recent rumors pointed to two new projects in the Silent Hill series, which were allegedly set to soft reboot the franchise. One would be a straight new game in the series, while the other would be an episodic game with gameplay akin to Until Dawn and Man of Medan. This rumor was quickly followed by teases that Kojima Productions, also working on Silent Hills, ended up not being true. Callum, where do you land on that? I'm pretty stoked for them to revisit Silent Hill, but so it seems like a bummer that's not on the cards yet. But
yeah, I think so I'd had the rumor before that apparently there was some sort of like new partnership with Kojima and Konami. But yeah, I mean that was always going to be tough to believe with how things ended with them. But yeah, I love Silent Hill. It'd be cool to get a new thing. I don't know if I'm quite glad that it's not going to be, or not yet confirmed to be, anything to do with Until Dawn and Man of Medan. I liked Until Dawn, but Silent Hill's a proper survival horror game like Resident Evil is, and it deserves a similar treatment that Resident Evil's getting right now. But yeah, that's it's not a huge surprise that the rumors weren't true. Right,
it was those rumors. I don't have them brought up exactly here, but I remember seeing them a couple weeks ago, and I didn't bring it up in the past episode just because they were so outrageous. So it's like it seems like it's really just a rumor, but we'll wait until something comes out. Some of those, some of the projections were that there was a secret deal with Konami and Kojima to or Sony was kind of trying to bridge that gap between them, and then buy the rights to the Metal Gear franchise from Konami. So there was a lot of just pipe dream stuff in there, but just not a lot of reality, because in this day and age, nothing like that really happens. It's earth shattering if it does, but most likely it's not going to happen that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's proof that Silent Hill's a huge franchise, because with the most recent Silent Hill games, they've all been really badly received. What was it called? Downpour.
Okay, sure, I remember that.
And that Book of Memories, maybe it was called or something. I think that was on handheld, but they were both really poorly received. But yeah, Silent Hill still creates a huge buzz. I don't know if that's because of the Silent Hills or the PT demo thing, but it just shows that it's still got a real following, and it just needs the same treatment Resident Evil's got. But Konami aren't really that bothered about games. It really seems, because I mean they're such a huge company that do other things
Pachinko
in Japan. That and their game sort of section doesn't really seem to matter that much to them. So it's a shame that they're sitting on this franchise and nothing can be done with it.
Yeah, they're
Maybe
sitting
they
on
should just
a
give it to Capcom,
gold mine.
let Capcom. Yeah, they are. Yeah. So maybe they should just let Capcom take it off their hands.
Yeah, Capcom will give them the love it needs for sure. They have a track record of that. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's a bummer, but I think a lot of the buzz that's generated with Silent Hill or keeping it going is that PT demo. Honestly, that's what keeps it alive in so many people's hearts, because that demo was so awesome, so scary, so much Silent Hill, and then you have Kojima tied to it as well, where it's just hard to let that go. Yeah. So I think that's where a lot of these rumors come from too. Even
like a collection on current gen hardware. I think the collection's on PS Now, but it's because it's a PS3 game. You'd have to stream it, and that's not the greatest thing. But because I mean, Silent Hill 2 is like one of the all-time great survival horror games.
Yep.
And I mean, if that was to get a remake, that I don't even think I'd be able to play that, because that is just that is on another level of terrifying, that game. But yeah, I mean, they must be watching, you'd imagine, and seeing what Capcom are doing with Resident Evil, and because people would just go absolutely mental for a Silent Hill remake or a Silent Hill 2 remake, or even just not even a remake, but just a new Silent Hill game in the vein of those original ones. Because Silent Hill was definitely on like a quick trajectory downwards. I mean, you have Resident Evil, which started to go on downwards trajectory with Code Veronica, and then went straight back up Resident Evil 4, and then went back down. Now it's gone back up. The Silent Hill has just like gone down completely, and it's just a shame that they've never really realised what they had with it.
Yeah, and it's I think it does provide this different area of the survival horror where you have the Resident Evil franchise. It's actually on this renaissance. It's coming back, and they're tackling this more action-y side of it. And with Silent Hill, they can really go the other direction where it's way more horrific. You don't have a lot of in your arsenal that you can fight back. You're really just kind of running and trying to stay alive and solving puzzles. Like, I like that they split. They've really split, and you can lean harder on that side. So if you were Konami, you could really kind of take advantage of that different area it can exist in compared to Resident Evil.
But and Konami must be looking at because Capcom in such a unique position now, because they can really experiment, because they're remaking these, because obviously when Resident Evil 6 came out, I enjoyed Resident Evil 6 personally, but a lot of people didn't like the direction it was going in, and that's fair enough. But now that they're remaking the old beloved ones, they've now got this, they've got these new games they're bringing out which the fans will love, which means they can experiment a bit more with Resident Evil 8 or whatever's coming next in the main series, because people can no longer really complain that Resident Evil's changed, because 7 was a huge change, but people embraced that because of what came before it, I suppose. But with Resident Evil 8, doesn't matter what direction they go in, people are still going to have the Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake, and whatever they're going to remake next, I'm sure they'll do another. So it kind of puts Capcom in this position where they can't really do anything wrong with Resident Evil 8, because that will be looked at now in a completely different vein, because before, with Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6, they were always compared to 4 and 2 and 3, but now they can't be, because 8 doesn't really have anything to compare itself to, because these older games that it normally gets compared to are being remade themselves and are their own thing. So I think Capcom are just in such a good place, and it just surprises me that Konami doesn't see that, because I'd say Silent Hill is probably the closest rival to Resident Evil historically. Obviously not now, but it does surprise me that they're just choosing to sort of die and let Resident Evil completely cannibalize their franchise.
Yeah, I guess if I think of competition now, I mean, really, it's is it the killer inside, or the killer within, enemy within?
Oh, Evil Within.
Evil Within. There you go. Yeah, that's the closest, and it kind of merges both of them, I guess, with more Silent Hill stuff and I guess more Resident Evil-ish on that side. But that's really the only thing that's kind of been beating the drum until Capcom actually took over and started remaking and taking advantage of their position. But that's been the only.
And you had Dead Space, but that EA obviously killed that quite quickly. In fact, I played a bit of Dead Space. I don't know if I talked about it in the last episode, but because I bought a PS3 literally just for Dead Space.
Nice.
Because it's stranded on there, and it's one of my favourite horror games. And yeah, I played that recently on PS3, and it still holds up. It still plays like amazingly well. It's still, I think, the best survival horror game that's ever been made. And the fact that that's stranded on PS3 is just such a shame, because it's just an absolute just masterpiece. But
yeah.
So I think that, and again, maybe that's another series that could compete with Resident Evil. It certainly did when the first Dead Space came out.
Sure.
It again died a quick death, but you do have to wonder who's watching and thinking about competing with Capcom, because people love these Resident Evil games, and there's definitely space for really well crafted horror games, because to me, I don't think there are many out there at the moment that are actually good, that are actually, you got like Outlast, which I enjoy, but
sure,
they're nothing like special. You've got I think Amnesia, there's a sequel
okay,
which could be interesting, but again, it's just, you don't have anything, there's nothing in that like stratosphere except Resident Evil at the moment that's really like killing it. And yeah, I think there's space for another one of these already established franchises to join in.
Callum, you're forgetting Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't know what you're thinking there. That's obviously the king of survival horror.
God, how many of them are there? There must be like 7.
Yeah, there's 13. I don't know what they're doing. Just some of them in VR. Yeah, those I've seen gameplay, and I have nephews and cousins they were in love with the story. They could never play the game because it was always terrifying for them, but they love the lore for some reason. But watching gameplay, it's just jump scares. I feel like that's what keeps it so tense, and to me it's just annoying because it's not really crafting it well. It's just a bunch of jump scares, and I never really latched onto that.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea. I've never played Five Nights at Freddy's. I've seen, when it first came out, there was a big thing on YouTube with it, so I've seen people play it. But I think it's been like tarnished as well because it was so big on YouTube. It then stemmed off all these like YouTube accounts who probably went deep into the lore and all these things. And the kind of people who watch those videos are little kids. Like my little brother is obsessed with Five Nights at Freddy's. Well, I say obsessed, but he in fact even today he mentioned it because I said to him about Resident Evil 3 coming out tomorrow, and I said, you can come play it with me tomorrow, just so he sort of keeps me company because I'm a bit too scared to play it on my own. But he said, I bet it's not as scary as Five Nights at Freddy's, and I was like, stop.
It's just like, get out of here, kid. What are you talking about? Oh man.
Yeah. So Five Nights at Freddy's, Silent Hill. One of them has to step up, I think.
Yep, I agree. Well, Callum, next article here is really about the fears of Corona possibly not only killing everybody, but also like postponing a next gen and seeing how that goes. So in response, we've gotten some word from Sony about their plans and what they foresee with production, issues with Corona. So this is from IGN. Joe Screbbles writes, PS5, no delay because of COVID-19, says Sony. A Sony spokesperson has said that COVID-19 outbreak should cause no impact on the launch date of PlayStation 5. Speaking to Bloomberg, the spokesperson said the company doesn't see any notable impact on the unspecified holiday 2020 release date set for PS5. That sentiment has been echoed by GameStop CEO George Sherman, who earlier said that there has been no indication of delays to either PS5 or Xbox Series X at this point. Sony has apparently been hurt in other ways by the outbreak, however. Coronavirus-related shutdowns of production facilities in China, Malaysia, and the UK has meant that Sony has had to revise earlier profit estimates, potentially even forcing it to delay an April earnings report. We'll likely hear a little more information on when the earnings report does arrive. We've already learned a lot more about PS5 in the last few weeks. We've seen the PS5's full specs, found out it will indeed run almost all 4,000 PS4 games in backwards compatibility mode, and learned that its install time should be much shorter than the PS4. Also today, Sony Corporation has revealed that it's launching a $100 million global relief fund to help those affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Callum, do you think they're kind of, I'm not saying this isn't true, but do you think we'll still see a reality where they have to push back this next-gen release? Because even if they have the production ready, financially, will these countries be ready to plop down $500, $400 for this next-gen stuff?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's just because Sony just have so much money that if they release it in the holiday and nobody buys it, they know that eventually people are going to buy them, or
Gotcha.
or whatever. I mean, they must have some sort of forecast to show that there's going to be little effect on whether or not they delay it. Yeah, I think it's interesting. December's a long way away,
Right.
but yeah, like you said, it's going to affect people financially. So you'd imagine that the sales are going to be affected no matter when they release it now anyway. But yeah, they must have something in place or a forecast that shows that, you know, over the long term, they might take a hit financially, but I'm sure they can probably afford to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's people a lot smarter than me who make these decisions, but I would have imagined it would have to be delayed just from a production standpoint.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems that maybe the production is going along fine, or more unlikely finished. But or maybe they're just waiting to make a decision. I mean, if maybe they're undecided, but they don't want to come out and say they're undecided.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think the reality is, even if they have the ability to make these manufacture these on a large scale, I think we're in a different landscape where consumers might not be ready to commit to something like this come December, just with all the issues they're dealing with possibly, I'm assuming everyone back to work at that time. Maybe that's where this thing swings back. But if they're not, or if the majority of people aren't back at work, it seems on a big scale unlikely that they'll be willing to upgrade to a next-gen thing, especially since a lot of these next-gen games, from what we know, they're all releasing in tandem with the current-gen stuff still. They're still like an option to play, so why not wait for next-gen if you're a consumer? I don't know. We're in a very weird time with releasing this. And
going back to something Sony said probably about a year ago now, or when the PS5 was first being sort of announced that it was real and everything, was that they don't foresee the PlayStation 5 being that, or they still foresee the PlayStation 4 being their main source of revenue, like even a year into the PlayStation 5 being released. So they still think that the PlayStation, they're predicting that the PlayStation 4 will still be making them more money than the PlayStation 5 will be, even a year into its launch. So, you know, and the good thing is as well that it's not just the PlayStation 5, because it's everybody is going to be affected financially. It's not just the PlayStation 5 that will suffer from that, it's everything. Right. So it's not like by releasing it, their competitors are like Xbox or whatever are going to get the jump on them. It's going to be hard for everybody. So I think maybe just sticking with the launch date. If people don't buy if people don't buy as many, then that's just what will happen. It's going to happen regardless. It's going to happen to everybody. So it just means that these PlayStation 5s will, you know, be in stock more than they expected. They'll just sell less than predicted. So I think maybe it's, you know, just one of those things where they don't really see the point in delaying it, because the worst thing that will happen is that they just won't sell as many units. Yeah. And for a giant like Sony and a giant like Microsoft, I don't imagine that that's a huge problem for them. It'd be a huge problem for them if they weren't selling units and the market was normal. But for these sort of exceptional circumstances, I can imagine that they can just take the hit and hope that everything will balance out within the coming years. Yeah, no, I think you're 100% correct on that. I guess we're kind of predicting some kind of weird turnout or expectation with this holiday season, but it's also possible, what if they don't make enough and it just sells gangbusters and everyone's hungry and has the money ready, waiting for the next gen releases? It could be where they actually, it seems unlikely, but you never know, where it could just be a shift where people actually just go out in droves to buy these next gen consoles. They might not have toilet paper, but they'll buy these next gen consoles. Yeah, and I imagine that they would have looked at the worst case scenario, and again, I'm not smart enough to really make a accurate sort of, or have an accurate opinion on this, but surely the worst case scenario is that not many people buy the PlayStation 5 at first, and I just don't see that, considering the circumstances we're in, I don't see that as a reason to delay the console. Right. Because delaying the console would, if you delay the console, then that means that they'd have to then push back all these other things that they've probably got planned, including game releases, that would have to come for PS5, and because of the whole backwards compatibility thing, I'm sure that they then have to push further things back. So you might that whole pushing back of everything else that comes after the PS5's launch may have a more significant financial impact on releasing it and just letting there be a bit of a lull before the sales start to pick up.
Right.
At least it's out there,
right.
and they can still continue like normal. Granted, they're not going to sell as many as they at first hoped, but they can still carry on with working on what they were going to work on. They don't have to pre-plan. They don't have to change their plans. They can carry on producing and rolling out what they've planned to do anyway.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's it's a very smart way of looking at it, and maybe need to be in some of these rooms making the decisions, Callum, because I think you got the
absolutely.
Well, you got some insight there, I think. Well, Callum, that was our last story there. We'll end it there for this week. So hopefully by next week we'll get your take on some Resident Evil 3 stuff and see what you think on that.
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully I will have got the Platinum Trophy. But
and make sure you have your brother next to you to tell you how to play the game, because he's a veteran for survival horror games.
Yeah, he is.
All right, Callum, then we'll let you go there. Where can they find you on the internet?
On Twitter at Bear Monroe is the best place. But yeah, I haven't been too active on social media at the moment. Just sort of playing too many games, I suppose.
Well, that's good. And you can find us on Plastic Heart Pod on Twitter as well. And Callum, will end it there this week. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
See you later.
You're too late. I've already summoned Meteor.
Okay, let's go.